Hey, welcome to Mama Talk Live. I'm Valentina Izarra.
And I'm Molly and Luna. And together today, the three of us, or 50 million of us, are going to be talking about this little thing called fear.
Yeah, little thing, although it feels like a very big thing. We were actually having a very candid conversation, Molly and I, about our current lives. And for some reason, the topic that we were discussing was about the fears that were going on in our lives, or certain things about whether it was a financial issue that we were having or something with our kids. The one thing in common that the entire conversation was about was fear. And so we wanted to bring this conversation to you, Mama, and see, an open conversation about fear in general, because I think that we all go through this and we can all help each other navigate through these things.
There's these buzzwords that are going on, at least out here in Los Angeles, and I'm sure worldwide, about live fearlessly, be fearless, get rid of fear, overcome fear. And quite honestly, I just want to address the fact that while fear is uncomfortable, and sometimes, let's be honest, it really stinking sucks, it can actually be a force for good when we choose to use it in the right way.
Yes, absolutely. It can be used in the right way. And I think we also need to be mindful of the fact that it's always going to be there, because when we hear those, what you were saying, like live fearlessly and like that, we tend to get the idea that fears are not supposed to exist. It's like, oh, pretend fear doesn't exist, but it does exist. So how do we use this fear in order to work for us, and so that it becomes something that it can actually be helpful and rather than detrimental in our lives? So we actually came up with tips for our mindful and driven mama, so that you guys, so that together we can, because we actually do this every day, we use these tips. And so I was sharing my tips and Molly was sharing hers, and we came up with these ones that we thought were important. So the first thing that we want you, Mama, to understand is that what is fear? Like, what is fear really? And
right. What is fear? Fear.
And Molly has a really good acronym. Tell us about that acronym.
I'm sure that you've heard it. It's been going around the circles, but fear is actually an acronym that stands for false evidence appearing real. Now, we are each individually in charge of creating our own reality. And sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow, especially when your life, or at least an area of your life's not going all that great. But you are in control of creating your reality. And when fear is popping up, it's actually an invitation for you to stretch yourself, to take courageous action, and to do something, to step into the unknown. Because honestly, all fear is it's an ignorance. And ignorance simply means just not knowing, having self-doubt about the outcome of something.
Yes, it's an assumption, because I'm going to say the acronym again, because I love this. And actually, perhaps you haven't heard the acronym before, because I was pretty recently, I think maybe like 1 or 2 years ago, that I had heard the acronym for the first time. And when I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so it.
So write it down, type it in the comments below.
So much less powerful. It makes fear so much less powerful. And it's, again, we're going to say it's false evidence appearing real. So whenever you have a fear of something, just remember that it's something that you're assuming, that, you're assuming that if you do one thing, that you're going to have a bad outcome, or perhaps that you're going to fail. But in reality, unless you do that thing that you're scared of, you really don't know what the outcome is going to be. So the first thing you need to do is to understand what fear really is. And it's just an assumption. You don't know that if you try that one thing that you really want to try, if you're going to fail. You don't know. So do you want to, I think the question, right, that we always have to ask ourselves is, do we want to get to the age where we regretted that we didn't try what we actually wanted to accomplish? Or are we really going to be regretful if we lived a life where we actually took those steps towards accomplishing our goal, regardless of whether it made us scared or not?
speaking of scared, I can think of several times in my life where I was absolutely fearful, totally scared. And one of those recently was entering into motherhood. I know that just before giving birth to my sweet baby girl, Hannah, I had all of these false evidences appearing real, mostly this fear that was keeping my mind in bondage about who it is that I was going to be after baby had arrived, or what type of mother I might be, and what if it doesn't work out, and just kind of letting my mind spin into all of these unknowns.
It's crazy. Yes, it's crazy all the things that we can think of, like when we're pregnant, like all the fears. We fear that the kid, obviously, you know, the normal. I remember I used to have dreams. I used to have dreams that my baby was like half a horse and half a monkey. It was like, yeah, like I would fear that obviously the health of the baby wasn't going to be good. Then I would fear that it was going to ruin, like, you know, my dynamic between me and my couple. And like you said, it's a lot of things that we fear that afterwards they happen. We're like, oh, you know, I give myself very little credit. But there are things that are normal, I think. Yes, with motherhood, there's so many fears accompanied with motherhood. It's not even funny.
So many fears, so many unknowns, and you just don't know how magnificent or wonderful it's going to be until you courageously continue to pursue that and welcome it into your experience. Now,
hey, and even when it's not so wonderful as you expect it to be.
Because let's be honest, those moments exist.
Exactly. Even when it's not as like wonderful as you imagined it to be, it's still worth it, and you do gain a lot of, wow, so much like wisdom from your kids if you're open to that, you know.
If you're open to receiving it, absolutely, that wisdom is there. But there's this fear, this emotional or this mental fear that is self-induced, that we create ourselves. There's also this physical fear. And oftentimes this physical fear is actually a really good thing, because it's what keeps us safe and in these sacred bodies, so we can experience this time-space reality. Like, you know, not crossing the street when a car is coming. There's fear that you might get hit. Well, that is good fear. So don't always be trying to live fearlessly or overcome it, but move into more self-awareness of asking yourself, is this fear helpful for me in propelling my life forward, or is it going to hinder me and hold me back from actually creating the life and the experience that I want to have?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just with that too comes along like our second point, which is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. So it's like what you said, it's stepping into our bodies and feeling whatever it is that's giving us that fear, but realizing that feeling of being uncomfortable is good, because it means that we are growing. It means that we are like evolving as humans. Because if we don't evolve, we stay comfortable and we stay in our little comfortable box, then we'll never actually be able to do big things. Because anything that takes a lot of effort and a lot of challenges are going to have fears that are accompanied with that. But at the end of that, it's basically like working uphill. And if we're constantly scared, you know, we're going up, and maybe if we look back, we're going to be scared because we see that it's very steep now, but we just have to keep on going and keep on going. And if we get comfortable with being uncomfortable, then I think we're living a life that's more full and more fulfilling and more exciting. It's like an adventure. So I think we have to switch our mentalities and think to ourselves, is fear really a bad thing? Maybe it's a good thing, right?
I think fear is a great thing. I think it's something that we can use to really propel ourselves forward. And it's not necessarily an easy thing to welcome into your experience, but for me at least, by just getting inside of my body and recognizing, okay, where am I feeling this? I'm feeling right before getting on stage or my first time going live on Facebook, you know, feeling my throat close up or feeling my chest get really
your
tight.
Stomach. I always get it in my stomach. Like, it's really weird. When I do theater, like right before I go on stage, my stomach starts churning, and I'm like, and I'm like, what is going on? Did I eat something that was weird? But no, that's how fear for me, for some reason, manifests in my belly. And But once we become aware of that, then I think we're more able, or we're more attuned to our bodies, first of all. And then we can also then, like for me, I had to do breathing exercises before I go on stage. I do certain things that allow me to, I guess, feel the fear that I'm feeling, but then able to navigate through it. Because if we let that take a hold of us, then we become paralyzed, and then we're unable to do what we actually set ourselves out to do.
Yeah, and it restricts us, and that paralyzation actually happens if you just are like, oh nope, I don't feel well, I don't feel like doing this, and you walk away, walk off stage, don't do that audition, don't grab that microphone and share your message with the world, don't hit go live on your live video recording. Your stomach area is actually your power source, and when you're feeling that tightness, whether it's in your throat, your chest, your stomach, use that as fuel to welcome in and ask yourself to stretch even further, to like take your wattage, like what is that, like light bulb wattage, like take your wattage up a few notches and just
Absolutely
do it anyway.
Yes. And sometimes I think to myself, like when I'm about to do something that really, really scares me, I'm like, okay, let me just get a hold of myself and realize that in like, because a lot of times these things that give us a lot of fear are very short things, like things that last maybe half an hour, or maybe it's a meeting with your boss that is going to last like, a 2 hours or whatever it is. Usually those things are like short.
A 2-hour meeting with your boss.
I know it's a lot. But what I'm saying is that, but even 2 hours is really a short amount of time when we really think about it. So I always think about, well, tomorrow it'll be past me. And that thing which I was so scared of will no longer even be an issue. So I always try to like say to myself, it's going to go way faster than I think. And let me just kind of, I guess, I'm not going to say big pants because we're girls. I'm going to put my big skirt on and do what I'm going to do. And this is going to be past me before I know it. And then I'll have such a learning experience from having done that, which scared me. And on top of that, I'll feel proud of myself. I'll be able to pat myself on the back for doing that thing that scares me. I wonder if, Mama, do you have something that you've done that scared you to death, and then you did, and then you felt so proud of yourself afterwards because you were actually able to go through with it? And that's the best feeling.
I want to hear about it, Mom. I want you to tell us in the comments below, but I can share an example with you for sure. The first time I ever held my own workshop, which was to empower women entrepreneurs, the night before, I had all my slides ready, I had my packets printed, I already had, several people confirmed to attend, and I just got sick to my stomach, and I just told my husband, I was like, I can't do this. I'm just going to cancel. I don't need to do this. I'm not going to do it. Thankfully, he was able to help me get back into a grounded state of being, and to remind myself that sometimes fear comes up as a form of protection. It wants to protect us from the fear of criticism of others, or of us even just up leveling into our own sense of self, our career, our finances. And thankfully I was able to put it into check. And I did the workshop the next day, still absolutely terrified and nervous. It was a 2-hour workshop. The whole time I'm like still within my being, like shaking and trembling and uncertain, and having that ignorance, that not knowing of the result that was going to happen at the end of it. But at the end of it, I got so many thank yous and accolades, and just
yay!
People paid me and were just like, oh, that is the exact thing I needed to hear today. So oftentimes this fear is holding us back from ourselves, but it's also holding back the gifts that we're able to give other people by just pushing through it and doing it anyway.
Absolutely. You're reminding me of that very famous quote from Joseph Campbell that says that the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. And that is, right along with our third point, which is to use that fear as fuel, which I think you had mentioned it before. Did you say that already? You said that already, to use the fear as fuel. So make sure that that's what you do. You grab on to that fear and you use it as your motivation, as your drive. The other thing I feel that you said that was very, wow, what a good point. And it was like an aha moment right now for me, is you sharing what you feared with your husband. Because I think that the act of us sharing our fears with other people has sort of a something magic happens when we do that. when we actually speak our fears out loud to people, and people mostly that we love and people that support us, they're able to give us fuel to push through those things, because they give us words of reassurance. They give us, they're our cheerleaders. Obviously, if you share your deepest fears with somebody that doesn't necessarily want you to go,
that's not going to propel them and amplify those fears and make them, yeah, you're right, you should be scared. No, it needs to be somebody who's grounded in reality and knows that fear you have is a false sense of it, and to shine a light on it. This is kind of a weird analogy, but I use it far too often, probably. When you shine a light on fear, meaning when you share your fears with another person, somebody else is going to be like, oh, I have that same fear. Basically, just to give you a visual, it's like flipping the light switch in your kitchen and watching the cockroaches scatter. Now, thankfully, I've never had cockroaches in my kitchen, but
I come from Venezuela. There's so many cockroaches in Venezuela.
Sorry, and do they like light?
Now. Thank God there's not many cockroaches here. They exist, but I live in an apartment building, so.
yeah. But it's true. It's when you just release it. Stop letting it just have bondage in your mind and hold you back. Just speak it out loud. Say it out loud. Worst case scenario, and then go ahead and do it anyway.
Yes. Anyways, exactly. Which is tip number 4. We have to take small, courageous steps towards the things that are bringing us closer to the dreams and goals that we want to accomplish. And no matter how scary and how big your dream is, there's something that my life coach says to me that I just love, and it's direction is more important than speed. So if you feel like you can't conquer your fear, like your big fear, like immediately, don't worry about it. As long as you take those small, little, tiny steps, courageous steps that bring you closer to that. So, for somebody that dreams of doing a lot of public speaking, but they're terrified of public speaking, maybe you want to start with like speaking in front of 2 or 4 people, and
start with the mirror. Just speak to yourself first. Start small.
As long as you're going in the right direction towards accomplishing those things, because we want to go a lot faster sometimes than we're actually capable of, and that's fine. I think sometimes when we are moving at a slower pace and we actually really want to, it's God's way of saying, not yet. It's not no. It's not a no. It's him saying, not yet. I'm preparing you. I'm prepping you for like what's to come. And if we're able to, sit well with that, and knowing that we are going to get a yes eventually, then, and we take those small, courageous steps towards it, we're going to get there. We're going to get there.
We will get there. Absolutely. So I love that analogy. Direction over speed. I picture driving in a cul-de-sac and just going like super fast.
Round and round. Exactly.
But you're just stuck in that creative cul-de-sac. You're just stuck spinning in circles, spinning your wheels in that realm, probably of fear. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough support, not enough hours, not enough whatever. Whereas if you just do what little bit you can do and courageously just keep moving forward, even if it's scary.
Absolutely. It's much better than moving around in all different directions, busying up your schedule and not doing anything that is remotely related to what you actually want to accomplish. So if you want to start, if you're a wannabe entrepreneur and you want to start that company, as long as you start taking these like small, courageous steps towards what you want to do, even if, your plans might not seem like everything seems like you don't even know where to start. As long as you start doing the research and you start aligning yourself with the people that also have those dreams or that already have that which you want to accomplish. It's all about taking those small steps towards your goals and your dreams. And I find that when I'm actually doing that, regardless of how small those steps are, it makes me feel better, because at least I know I'm like, well, I did something today that's making me feel closer to what I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. Rather than accomplishing something really big that has nothing to do with what we actually want to do later on.
Yes, absolutely. So let go of the idea of needing to live fearlessly, but instead hold on to that fear and use it as fuel to propel yourself forward and stretch yourself outside of your comfort zone, because just outside of your comfort zone is where all of your prosperity lies. So
yes. So just to recap really quickly, just so that we just kind of one, you have to understand that fear is just false evidence appearing real. So don't worry about it. It's really just an assumption. Number two, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Know that that when you are uncomfortable, you're actually growing as a person and you're being challenged, which is a really good thing.
Yes.
Number three, use fear, as Molly said, as your fuel to propel you forward. Because the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. And four, just do it, mama. Go for it. Take small actionable steps towards your goal. And we're all navigating this thing called life. We all have different fears, which we want to overcome. And
yes.
we're a community of mindful. We both created our social media platforms, Molly and I, because we feel very strongly about supporting other women and uniting as women to go through life, you know, through motherhood and through career wise, in a way where we all motivate and help one another. So we would love to hear your comments about fear.
Yeah, so go ahead and drop that in the comment below. Tell us, which one of those four things will you start amplifying more in your life so that you can use fear as fuel to live your most courageous and prosperous life?
Yes, and next week we'll actually be talking about language that you can be using to go from pain to power, which is also all about fear. So how our language basically dictates how we see fear. So we can see fear in a positive way, like we spoke about today. So we'll actually get more into detail next week with regards to that subject.
Yes, so join us next Tuesday. And in the meantime, during the week, go follow Valentina on all social platforms at Mamas Con Ganas, and follow me over at Mindful Mamas TV.
That's right. That's right. Have a wonderful, beautiful week, mama. Ciao.
Bye.